Welcome back to another episode of the Morning Buzz. Hi, I'm your host, Russell Gahagan from Russell's Fishing Tech, and today we got a new guest, pretty excited about, Hunter Engel from Best Chance Charters. Hunter, how are you doing today?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, other than the weather, obviously. We're sitting here in April in Wisconsin. You're sitting over in Michigan, and I think we've both been dealing with crazy Mother Nature this March and April, that's for sure.
Oh, angry Mother Nature, that's for sure. I mean, I keep on telling people, complaining to my neighbors mostly and friends and such, it's disheartening when you see snow on your fishing boat. Just, I know all you have to do is shovel it off, but you got to find a plastic blade shovel and get it off, and you're just like, come on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I've been intending to get out and do a bunch of videoing out on the water, and I've had even a couple of people post on YouTube and say, how come I haven't seen much action from you? And, you know, the obvious answer is, have you looked outside? I'm kind of done with the inside stuff as far as I want to be anyways. And the outside stuff hasn't played a role. So at any rate, why don't you give the people at home, a little 3-4 minute background of your history, kind of how you grew up in the fishing industry. You're similar to me, as you have a father who's a longtime charter captain and tournament fisherman. So give everybody at home kind of just a little bit background in case they're not familiar with you and kind of what you do now.
Well, how I started off life was in a tackle shop. My dad and my mother started it back in like 1983, I want to say. Sounds about right. A couple of years before I was born. Dad got a charter boat, and mom ran the tackle shop, and actually I found the old video of it from what we offered and all that jazz back then. And then Dad had the opportunity about 10 years down the road. Dad had the opportunity from running charters and such to buy the Tiara that he's got right now. He runs an old 36 Tiara called the Best Chance 2, TOO. Why? Because he does not like to be number 2. He's not superstitious, I promise. And mom and him decided, let's sell the shop. Dad went on to do fishing tournaments and mom sold the shop, and I pretty much grew up on the back of a boat fishing with my dad, other captains around the harbor and such. They loved taking me because I knew what I was doing, and they could figure out what my dad was doing. And for those of you that don't know my dad, he's very, very successful tournament fisherman. We just we had to redo the website this year because of a crash, and he's officially won 74 fishing tournaments. That's pretty impressive. But me, I fished with Dad in quite a few of the tournaments, charter fishing. Did a lot of competitive duck and goose calling. I don't know if you can see it in the back, but that's part of my call collection. And hunting and fishing has just been my bug. I can't get enough of it, especially the waterfowl and especially the salmon fishing. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of action. You can BS with your buddies. You can have fun. You can just cut up. You're not sitting there all quiet and just waiting to see something. Lord willing, you've got 2, 3, 15 fish on at once. And about 11 years ago, I was fishing with Uncle Bob on my boat, and he got pretty old and had a heart attack. And it was one of those that you drive yourself to the hospital because you're not doing so, because you just like, oh, man, something doesn't feel right. And then he said, Hunter, I'm done. You've had your license since you were 16. And I'm like one of the last people that I'm aware of that got their captain's license at 16 years old, but 9/11 took care of that. And he said, are you in? You're going to buy the boat? And I said, yep, I'm going to buy the boat. So I run the old family boat, the original Best Chance that my dad started the business with. And then doing fishing tournaments and running a whole bunch of fishing charters ever since. And that led to me meeting my wife, Holly. She met her right at the fish cleaning station. She was captaining a different boat, someone else's boat. And, at first I thought she was just a customer. And if you've ever seen her, you can understand why I thought that. But no, she loves fishing. She grew up on Lake Erie with and not just her dad or her brothers. The mom also had to be fishing. So to say that this family lives for fishing is a bit of an understatement.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Holly for sure, because kind of what I look or anticipate Lily might look like. My youngest daughter, who's just a diehard fisherman, sort of knowing, like you said, that Holly's a big fisherman. That's sort of what I anticipate Lily will likely be at some point. So Saugatuck is your home port, correct? That's where the charter boats are located?
Yes.
And you guys have 2 boats, correct?
Actually, we've gone up to 3. I have a younger brother. He did a lot of soul searching in life and stuff like that. He did the college thing, so on and so forth. And then after a death in the family, he said that he decided, life's just way too short. So he used to work at Family Children's Services, and he got out and he purchased a Sea Ray, newer model than mine, and we affectionately call it the Best Chance Junior. Him and I stay pretty close. To home. I will fish South Haven the week of that tournament, and I fish up in Holland too. As of right now, he does not leave Saugatuck. Dad, however, does hit the tournament circuit. Like I want to say sometime. Not next week, but a couple days after, like the 19th, I think. We're taking the big boat down to Michigan City, New Buffalo area. I'm going to start tournament fishing and charter fishing down there. And then he'll follow. And then we'll go up from there to St. Joe, South Haven. Then I'll be home for a little while. Then I'll go to Grand Haven. I don't think we're going to do Wisconsin this year.
Yeah, so that was kind of the next transition I was going to go into. So obviously, as you mentioned before, your dad is a sort of legendary tournament angler. Your family, he's come over to Wisconsin, fished our tournament before. For myself, growing up, they were the team to beat. Obviously, in my early years on tournament trail, and still in a lot of ways, they are the team to beat when they're in the tournament. They're not fishing all of them anymore, but he fishes quite a few. So you guys are going to start down in Michigan City, which I think is like the 30th and 1st. 30th of April, 1st of May. What do you anticipate that bite to be like, considering we've had this real, drawn out winter now? What looked like we were going to get an early spring has turned into kind of just a holding period. What are you hearing down there, and what is kind of your expectation of what that's going to look like in about 2 weeks?
They are catching coho down there, especially around the warm water areas and such. Yes, the air's been cold, but the water really hasn't been frozen for all that long. The water's been thawed out nice and stuff, so we're still going to have plenty of bait fish, I believe. And I am anticipating, a pretty good catch and such. We did, like I said, they might do some brown down there. We do start out right here, but it's a big waiting game around here. If we go brown trout fishing. I personally don't mess with it. I will do it. We've had some success with 2 colors and mini streaks with free sliders and such. But when it comes to that, I personally either go look for coho or we go for lake trout.
Right, which was going to bring me to my next question. So for that Michigan City tournament, obviously coho is probably not going to win the tournament. You're going to need to have some of those to fill your catch, but you got to have something with some weight. So again, being that it's sort of a late, year here, late spring, it's looking like, and the water's going to be a little bit cooler. Do you think there'll be some kings around, or do you think lake trout will likely play a little bigger role because of the cold water?
That's a good question. You don't know until you go. And do I think there's going to be some around? Sure. Do I think they're going to be hard to find right away? Absolutely. And if you find a couple and have a full box, I think you're going to win. I mean, it's no secret. the person with the most fish that you can have legally and with the biggest fish wins. Us personally, when we won, it's been renamed the Quake Classic. When we won it last year, we won it with lake trout and coho. We needed, we needed to have a coho to fill our box because you can only weigh X amount of lake trout, but we had heavy lake trout as well. So that's going to be our plan, at least, unless something changes. Like we had those 2 springs, back in 2019 and 18, where we had just crazy king runs and such.
Yeah, I don't anticipate it to be like that. I've only fished the Coho Classic once, which, like you said, has been renamed now. And what I found interesting in that particular event is that there was 2 different types of lake trout bite. There was an offshore lake trout bite you could go fish, which it's unique to like here and maybe even where you are. Saugatuck's one of the few ports I haven't fished actually, but offshore from Michigan City is like 150 foot of water. I mean, it's a long ways out, but that's their deep water. And then we caught them on the reef in 40 foot, so it was kind of an odd deal there. But there was 2 different types of bites, so that's always sort of a game to figure out too. Are the big lake trout out deep? Are the big lake trout in shallow? Maybe is there some of both? So that should be an interesting scenario. Now, you said after that, you guys are going to work your way up. I assume Dad's going to probably fish St. Joe.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, and I have been hearing that the bite in St. Joe appears to be pretty hot. And usually that tournament, being that it's a week or 2 later, whatever it is, the king bite's a little more steady, or you can expect it to be a little better by the time you get to St. Joe. Just as, the spring kind of gets going a little bit more. So I would anticipate and think that the Kings will play quite a bit bigger role once you guys get to St. Joe, unless, we just continue with this crazy weather pattern that we've been having, that's for sure.
Yep. We do catch more Kings. We do. It's just a good old method. You run out, find the tent break, and fish along it and such. That's how my dad's always done it. I personally have not fished it. I haven't driven the boat. I've been on the back of the boat running rods, net, and fish, and so on and so forth. But I've never driven the boat like he has out around there. And usually when he's on the boat, why should I be driving? We got 25 years of experience. We got 44 years experience. So,
Yeah, same thing I do. I like to stand next to my dad and monitor. Try to learn every inch and every ounce of information I can drag out of them for that particular experience. So let's talk a little bit about your charter season. So you got the boats in already. I saw that. You guys put them in early. That's really cool and awesome. Not a lot of places. I mean, even some of the guys way down south. I got a buddy in Waukegan that I go with once or twice a year. He doesn't even have his boat in yet. So you guys are after it. You're already in. Kind of give us, a couple minute rundown of the season. When do you really get started with trips? I mean, obviously you could book a trip tomorrow, but I mean, when do you really get started with running trips like on a daily basis, basically? How long does that run your season, and kind of run us through the season? So, I mean, in spring, it's coho, like you said, or lake trout, whatever it may be. Then you get into Kings at this time of year and, so on and so forth.
So we do put our boats in this time of year for multiple reasons. One, because, we can start, the sooner we can start, the sooner we can, get going. And there have been some good coho bites out here, right in our port and such. And that's what we like to do. Dad puts his in this time of year, obviously, because he's heading south. But we won't quite get ramped up quite yet because because here this weekend we head to Iowa because I like to do a little bit of turkey hunting as well. And we're going to head to Iowa, do some turkey hunting out there, work on our lease. And then when we get back, we're going to start running charters. And when we really get busy is, I want to say about mid-May, which actually could be our best time of the year for fishing because we're getting that spring run from kings and such. You know, we South Haven's had their tournament. The Kings have made their way up, and we are hosting that Salmon in the Classroom project that we do. I don't know if you guys have seen anything about that. I mean, it's a statewide thing for us, but here in Saugatuck, we take it a step farther, taking the kids fishing and such. And about June 1st, if we have not started fishing lake trout, we are definitely going hardcore for it by then. We're either fishing them with chartreuse rigs like spinning glows, whirligigs, and so on and so forth, or if the water's already warmed up, then we've gone to glow, chrome and glow, I should say. You know, sometimes we're running tin cans or chrome spin doctors with glow spinning glows. Maybe the old Mo setup, and or glow whirligigs. And as the season progresses, we get about I want to say about late July. Sorry, not January. Late July, we'll start seeing some more kings and so on. So and the coho are starting to show back up. We don't get them like you guys do, obviously. They're bonus fish for us. But Dad and I have always got a couple of high lines, like whether it be 2-color, 3-color, and or some mono divers outside of our wire divers and such, with little red Dodgers and a blue Liz. I don't know why the blue Liz works so well here, but it does.
Yeah, that's definitely a fly that's known on the south end of the lake all the way around, right? Guys talk about that all the time. Right.
And when the kings start hitting hardcore, you know, we usually depth of water is anywhere from 120 to 150 feet of water usually. We don't quite have the structure that some of you guys do, and it's definitely not a beach like it is on the southern end of the lake. But what we got to do is we got to find these bodies of water that hold zooplankton and such. We do have what we call the point, and sometimes they're on the north side of the point, sometimes they're on the south side of our point. It's not quite like the big point up in Pentwater or anything like that, but it's there. The current does get affected from that land, and there is zooplankton around there that does hold the bait fish and that holds the game fish. So yeah, as far as depth, that's the body of water we fish, and how far down that changes. You just got to find the break, you know. Like I said, sometimes in July when if it's really, really hot, we're fishing 130 feet of water and we're fishing 100 feet down sometimes. And if we're fishing lake trout, I promise you, we've got at least one rig, maybe 2 rigs on bottom. We run our Canon Optimums on bottom and such. Why? Because they can handle it. We're running their 16-pound weights and bouncing bottom. That's no secret. And depending on how much silverfish are around, basically we start high in April or May. We work our way down to bottom in June, and then we start bringing them back up as the season progresses. About this time of year that we're talking, and then my season after the Saugatuck tournament, you know, we'll get a fall run, fish the pier heads, so on and so forth. And what I like to do when we're fishing the pier heads is I like to run Hummingbird's mega imaging, you know, that side scanning and stuff, just because I know where the bait fish are, I know which side the game fish are on and such. And just got to find, and depending on their aggression, I might be switching over to plugs then. I'll still keep some flashes and flies out, but I might be going over to plugs, especially on my high lines, like the coppers and so on and so forth. And by about, I take September 1st off, because then that's when goose season starts, and the season's been kind of long. And after about mid-September, I have to pack up the boat personally, because my dad and I run a a private duck hunting club that my family's run since 1886. Dad's third generation, I'm fourth generation to be managing it, so on and such. And my brother will keep running a little bit later into the season because he can. But so basically our season starts about mid to late April and ends about mid September.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit specifics about a couple of those things. Let's start with that lake trout program because I'm interested in, and you don't have to give any secrets away. So don't worry about that. I'm not asking you to give away Dad's 40-year lifetime secrets. But for the guys at home, one of the questions I get a lot when I do schools and stuff, especially when I do them in Michigan. I just did one in in Grand Rapids, and I did one in Novi, and I'm coming to do a seminar in Manistee in a couple weeks. Whenever I'm in Michigan, I always get asked about spin doctors because you come to Wisconsin and really, in reality, most people don't even know what they are. A lot of people definitely don't use them, but they can be a lake trout tool. Now, I'm a little bit old school for the most part. I'm more of a Dodger guy myself. I have used spin doctors, and then even recently, I've actually become way more of a cowbell guy just because of the time of year and how deep we're fishing, the lake trout now on our side of the lake, being that we're fishing them out in 200, 300, 400 foot of water down near the bottom. It's hard to get some of that stuff down there. But at any rate, give us an idea of what I'm really looking for is why chrome spin doctors or why Dodgers? What really tells Hunter in the morning when you're going to go out for a trip? Are you just going to put out both and see what they want for the day? Or is there something about water temperature or time of year or something like that, depth of water, that makes you want to fish a 10-inch chrome spinny versus a trash can Dodger?
So I don't run 10-inch spinnies. Just so you know, we run 8-inch. That's because that's the first one that Pete Rubianos brought to us and such. And that's what we learned to fish, and that's what we stick with. I'm not going to say I don't run it just day in and day out. We always treat every tournament like it's a charter. We just go fishing, and we run, and we're very productive with our 8-inch. So depends on how much action and aggression they really want. Early in the spring, the chartreuse and the Dodgers seem to work really well. And you're fishing a bit of a slower speed. And then as the water warms up, let's say about mid-May, maybe even June 1st, we run the spin doctors because they're a little more speed forgiving. We can run a little bit faster with them. So, and by the end of the season, I promise you, I'm fishing a chrome spin doctor with a spinning glow on bottom, while I've got other spin doctors looking for kings at the same time. You can catch both at the same time, because as long as they're all eating alewives and such, that's what makes me switch over. And I do put out both sometimes to answer your question. Yes, like I love putting Dodgers on my riggers, and I'll have some spin doctors on my divers. I start off with all Dodgers, but progressively I just change it. And when she quit and when we stop catching, or I've got to speed up a bunch, because 2.1 to 2.3 miles an hour is about the best you can do with a Dodger. But with a spin doctor, you can go 3.3 miles an hour if you want to. Everything, you'll know if you got a fish, because all of a sudden everything's pulled tight, and then it looks like it's going to bend right in half when you get a fish on going that fast, though. Kings, I like 2.7 miles an hour. That's no secret. I know that. But as I said, you can just you can just fish faster. It's a lot more speed forgiving, and you have the opportunity to catch bulls.
So that's definitely what I hear from the guys in Manistee in particular, which is sort of the area that I've spent a lot of time lake trout fishing in the past. On your side of the lake, I should say. I've fished multiple tournaments over there and had quite a bit of success. And I was using Dodgers. I like kind of that 1.5 to 1.8. In particular, if I'm specifically targeting lake trout. with Dodgers. But like you said, there was a particular few days in pre-fishing and one even in a tournament where I can remember where, we didn't get any king bites or maybe one, and some of the other boats got a couple king bites, but they were able to go quite a bit faster with their spin doctors. With their chrome spin doctors, they were using 10-inch. That's why I made that comment. So that's interesting and that's good. They were able to go quite a bit faster. So it sounds like in theory, you're kind of on the same realm as what I kind of already knew and what they told me, which was that, they like to use the spin doctors when there's salmon around and they want to go a little quicker. When there's not salmon around, basically, then they'll slow down and fish the Dodgers more for lake trout. So, all right, what about, let's talk kings for a minute. You said that, that mid-May into early June's kind of your premier king time frame, or can be, and then obviously again in July. But let's talk that mid-May into June time frame. What does your spread look like on an average year, and what kind of tackle are you really using, generally speaking? Spoons, shiny colors, glow colors, spin doctors and flies, meat. What is kind of the average spread that time of year for you guys on your charter boats when you're whacking fish at home in Saugatuck in that mid-May to early
June? When I'm charter fishing, we're pretty much running spoons on. I'll be running spoons on my high lines and such, and it depends on where they're at, because they, that time of year, they're literally from top to bottom. I'll pull some mini streaks on the high lines, I say high lines, 2-color, 3-color, and maybe even some super slims, Slurpees in particular. The mini streaks is probably like a lemonberry or a screwball. and then we'll get and then as I get a little bit deeper, I think my deepest copper line, we run a lot of copper over here because, like I said, we need to get deeper, and we fish some deeper water. I'd say probably like a green jeans or a blue jeans about that, and maybe even a starburst would be on my 300. That would be my deepest. And then I'm pulling spinnies and flies for sure. If we're just king fishing, right? We're not trout fishing. Yeah. So I'll probably be running what we all call the Engel rig, and that's something that my dad came up with, and he wins a lot of and he's won a bunch of tournaments with it. It's a chrome Mountain Dew spin doctor with crush tape on it, as well as a yellow beaded Mirage fly. That'll be on high. Then another good one is, and right below it is probably a Fat Nancy, which its true name is a chrome frog, green crinkle, and then another good. And then on the other side, depending on how good Nancy's doing, we'll probably have another one over there, and then a chrome spin doctor with a green crinkle. And on my riggers, depending on what they're after, depending on how the spoon bite's going, I'll probably be pulling an NBK, whatever spoon's going. Like I said, mini streaks on the sliders, free sliders, because like I said, they could be anywhere that time of year. And I'd probably say green jeans, blue jeans, NBK, Starburst, something like that. Just find what they want and keep it going. But I try to keep some of the brighter orange colors up high, because we're also finding some coho around there, as well as maybe some steelhead. So that's kind of my spread. And if it's a little slower, I might have 1 or 3 riggers on bottom, pulling some trout rigs just in case. Because as I said, we like to fill the boxes. We don't like to troll around and just catch one fish. This is a active sport. This is a sport of numbers.
Absolutely. No, you answered what my thoughts were, which is my experience of fishing like St. Joe in that May time frame and stuff has been that it's kind of the start of the flash or fly bite, and it can be okay. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, it's going to probably be a pretty heavy spoon bite, for kings. Yeah. I mean, again, you can have a day or a couple of days where all of a sudden they're on the flashers and flies, but generally speaking, the spoons are going to be a little more consistent that time of year, as far as the kings go, for sure. And that was cool that you were willing to share some of those. Now, one of the things that I talk about quite a bit in seminars and schools, and I've talked about on here before, especially with a few Michigan individuals that I've had on, is you guys have a unique law versus us. Here we're 3 lures, you guys are 3 rods. So one of the cool things always when I travel over by you to fish is Downriggers over here, and I've promoted this for years, and it's no knock against anybody that makes Downriggers or anything like that, because I got Canon Optimums as well, and I love them. But it's a reality, right? Unless you're lake trout fishing, Downriggers don't have the value that they had 20 years ago. Just the reality of it. There's nothing negative. I mean, we've just found ways, like you said, with copper, lead core, weighted steel, wire divers. We've found ways, and things have been developed in the past 20 years that are they're just better to catch fish in today's fishery on a daily basis. Now, what is interesting, though, is on the Michigan side, because of what I call the multiplier, because you guys can basically, if you want to, you can 2 up every rod with 2 baits on it. That obviously changes things a little bit in the sense of, if you got 3 riggers on your boat, you can run 6 lures on it. That's a huge advantage compared to what, at home we could only run. Generally speaking, you'd only run 3. I do run some sliders or stackers, especially if I'm charter fishing and I got a lot of customers. So around that whole thing, my question was going to be, for Hunter, is it generally a stacker or a slider, and why?
If I know where they're at, around over here, we call them a fixed slider. And if I know where they're at, then I'll put it on a fixed slider. If I don't know if I'm not quite sure, like especially early spring and such, then it'll be a free slider. I just kind of had a little bit of nostalgia when you were talking about how riggers were the go-getter, because I mean, growing up, we always fished 5 riggers on every single boat and stuff like that. And then the alternate techniques came in, and they just became very, very effective. But what was the rest of your question?
Fixed slider or free slider, and you answered it to the same level that I would have, which is great, because it's always nice to hear. I love both sides, right? When I conversate with guys, I love to hear their opinion when it's different, but it's also nice to have the same thoughts on some things, to know that it works around the entire Great Lakes. So you treat it like I do. If the fish are all over the water column, which for here, we get that, like you said, in spring, we also get that in late July and early August, where the water will get warm and there'll be fish everywhere. I like sliders. Mm-hmm. In June, in particular, early June, mid-June would be like our king bite, like you'd get in mid-May, I guess. We'll have a bite where them salmon will stack in a 10 or 15 foot section of the water column for about 2 weeks or so. Obviously, in that case, I like running a fixed, as you call it, a fixed slider. I call it a stacker, where I might have a double spoon set up, 10 feet apart in the water column, because they're both in the strike zone then. But basically, we treat it the same, which is, if we think there's a fish are all over, we're going to run a slider. And that's a tool that I really feel like a lot of people at home, especially weekend anglers, can add more fish to their catch by using, especially if they're limited on rods. My experience with the tackle store was I had a lot of customers that just dollar and cents wise, they had to start with 6 rods or 8 rods or whatever, but they take 3 or 4 people out fishing all the time, right? But they just don't have more than 6 rods. So they're like, what can I do to try to get an extra lure in the water? Well, obviously a slider, a stacker would be a great way to do that. So that's a good tool.
And if you get 2 on each, two on each lure on the same rod, that definitely adds the excitement.
Yeah. I've only experienced that, truthfully, probably a dozen times or so in my life. Most of that time would be coho fishing somewhere where the coho bite was insane, obviously. I have had it 2 times that I can say in my life where I had non-coho species. Both times were a adult salmon and a lake trout. One time happened to be a pair of 20-pounders. I'll never forget that. That was 20 years ago, probably. But yeah, that's a definite interesting scenario. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's fast forward now. Let's get to that mid-July timeframe and late July timeframe, when the salmon have now, and I don't think it's any secret anymore, there becomes a point in the year where all of a sudden our water flips on our side. You guys will get cold water, we get the hot water, and that seems to be the transition when the salmon slide from the Wisconsin side to the Michigan side for the rest of the season, or at least the volume of them do. Don't get me wrong, we still catch kings in August, but not like we do in June and July. You guys still catch kings in June, but not like you do in May and July. So let's fast forward to that time frame. Let's just pretend for a minute that the water has flipped now. The salmon have come back to your side. It's late July. It's a normal late July. The kings are around. What's your program, generally speaking? Run us through. You're going to head out on a morning charter. You're going to fish, like you mentioned earlier, that 130 to 150 foot of water, probably down deep. What's your program going to look like?
It's 90% flashes and flies. Because I know a lot of people do run Magnum spoons that time of year and such. I just had better luck with attractors and flies personally. And I'll pull them on the higher ones and such if I must, but it's mostly flashes and flies. And depending on where the light and depending on how the lighting is and stuff like that, like blue bubbles and stuff like that, I'll probably have out there. Green bubbles and let's see what else. Pat Nancy, Chrome to Green Crinkle. There's a plethora of them. It's hard to name them all, but as I said, it's mostly greens and blues for me. I personally have probably slid away from the chartreuse. My dad will probably still have it on, and if he's catching, I'll throw it out there. By chartreuse, I mean like an Engel rig setup or something close to it. And I won't start pulling plugs quite yet, just because, unless the current is absolutely ripping and I can't slow down, like I can't get below 3 miles an hour, then I'll throw some plugs out there just because they work really good when you're going fast. And but I'll have them on my high lines. I'll have my spinnies and flies on everything else. And if it's just if it's a charter and everything else is kind of up high, I will probably have, and depending on how we're doing, I'll either have my chute on bottom or I'll have it up completely if I'm fishing very, very deep. Just because, you get 2, 3, 5 fish on at once and you need to shuffle. You don't want the chute in the way. Everyone left how most of us stack our boats up. We keep everything up on the sides. We have very little at the very back of the boat, but we do have a lot of rod holders in the gunnel so that we can shuffle them around and such. So, and if it's really dark, like really, really dark, when I first leave the dock, like I think you guys leave the dock at like 4:30 sometimes, right? Yeah. And but our early for us is 5:30, and it won't be because we'll try to get that first bite in right away. Probably something with some glow, like maybe with some glow beads on it. Charge it up a little bit, send it out, and as the sun's popping, we'll change the lures out with ones that don't have glow in it or as much glow in it. Just because the sun's up, the glow stopped working, time to pull it in.
Okay. Let me ask you a couple specific questions about that. So when you said you'll have the chute rigger on bottom or maybe up higher, is that thing going to have a big paddle on it? I know that your dad over the years has been a big paddle guy. I'm assuming you probably, have had your days on it just like I have too. Matter of fact, I can remember back to again, I say a kid, I'm 39 years old. I can remember back in my high teens, low 20s, chasing around, talking about salmon and listening to everything I could listen to and listen plenty to your dad and Bill back in the day. And, there was a flasher made by Coyote that had, pearl fish scale tape on both sides. I felt like those guys had one or two of those in their pockets every time I saw them because they wouldn't leave home without them. So it's an 11-inch paddle, as I like to call it, the big skateboard, some guys call it. Is that a go-to for you in that time of year, I would assume?
If I'm running the chute, if I am, I will pull it and stuff. It really isn't because I do a lot better because because you have to be very careful with it. There's no secret, because if you run it, you have to send it out farther back than the rest of them, because that thing's whipping really big. And in recent years, I haven't been running it as much because I've had my riggers on bottom looking for trout more often. Last year we didn't quite have the king run that we did before, so I had to have my stuff down. I'm in 130 feet of raw water. There's trout there, not as many kings. So I've had everything up high and my riggers on bottom, and in 130 feet of water, those optimums are out. I don't know, 200, 250 feet, 270 maybe, depending on how fast you're going. Will I run it? To answer your question, if I know there's kings around and it's up higher, yes. Just send it out far. It'll be a big paddle. I kind of run more Dreamweaver stuff than anything. Shane's my buddy, and I grew up with him and his dad, and still miss his dad. God rest him. But yep, run a big paddle, send it out a little farther than the rest, because that thing will be whipping really hard, and you will wrap all three riggers together. I've never done it before, and I never will again, I promise.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, and I think what you're saying is, makes total sense. We've started running less and less of it. It's no secret that I've, made it clear in multiple videos, many salmon schools, and conversation that, at least from a chartering standpoint, and I don't do a lot of it anymore. I'm going to do a little more this year, I think, but I have a partner that runs a boat called Fish Stick that, we have that boat and we operate that. Probably 8 out of 10 trips, maybe even 9 out of 10, we have a cowbell on the center rigger, for the exact same purposes as you would have a spin doctor or a trash can down on the bottom. So that's my rod for the skateboard. So if I'm running a cowbell, I'm not running a skateboard. But I will say now, in the last 2 years, twice, one time period in each of the last 2 years for about a week, we had salmon around in that mid-July time period when the water got warm, right before they vanished to your side. And I put a big skateboard down with a fly, and it was the best rod. So I think the point there is that can be an answer, and historically has been. But I'd agree with you, when you're getting paid to fish, a lot of times the other game, cowbells, spin doctor and spinning glows, just more consistent. Transitioning into my next question would be, are you a meat guy? Yes or no? And regardless, sort of what is your go-to setup for meat? You don't have to be real specific on color if you don't want to. I'm just more or less meaning 8-inch, 10-inch. Are you using spin doctors? Are you using big fish blades? What is your deal, and where do you like to put it? Because meat is something that most of our people at Home Hunter that are watching this are pretty nervous about. A lot of them don't have a lot of success with it. I don't know if you've watched many of my morning buzzes, but I did one with Casey Prisco, who's a really good buddy of mine at Fishes Lake, Ontario, charter captain, tournament fisherman, very, very skilled angler. I did one with him, I think, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that. He said he went through about 2,300 pieces of meat last year. So, we all know there's a different level of meat guys. I'm not that level. I've said this in all of my schools. I'm good enough at fishing meat to be dangerous. Definitely not the best around. But what is your take on meat, and kind of how do you play it into your spread?
It definitely has its days. There's no doubt about it. And if you're going to fish 333 where you only need like 3 big fish and stuff like that, then yeah, you definitely want to pull some meat. Where I found meat works the best is if there's a lot of fish around, because it's no secret, you catch bigger fish with meat. Will I pull it? Absolutely, especially if I'm fishing a tournament. And meat did catch our biggest fish last year. The year prior, I just want to brag on my wife for a second. So a lot of people have heard about this, but the year prior, 2020, my wife, we caught our biggest fish as a captain in my career. My wife caught a 31-pound king, and it won us the big fish tournament, and the first one actually for Denny Allen Memorial. So that was fun to catch a 31-pound king. And it was a paddle and fly, sorry. But will I pull meat? Yes. And if I do, you need to commit. You need to commit it. You just can't throw. It seems like you can't just throw one somewhere in your spread randomly. If you're gonna fish it, you might as well fish that side with meat. Like a buddy of mine, that's all he does. If he's fishing meat, he has one whole side of his boat, rigger excluded. The divers, the toppers, the leg cores, those have got meat on them. That entire side of the boat. The other side, if it does, he'll be pulling artificials otherwise. And I run 8-inch with everything, and the reason behind that is because we're really good at fishing 8-inch. That's what we cut our teeth with. That's what we run all the time. And we discovered that, and a buddy of ours, Paulie, said, he was really good with meat, and he says, well, why don't you pull meat? We're like, we don't catch nothing but those 10-inch span doctors on them and such. Well, why don't you run them on 8-inch? And to us, and back when it was still really new, we're like, can we do that? Well, yeah, you can. And we've been very successful with it. I guess. And as far as specific colors and stuff, that's a little tricky, color changes daily, especially as the sun changes and stuff like that. If I'm running anything deep, if I'm running any meat down deep, I'll run ones that have glow on them and such. Otherwise, I'll be looking for colors like a Kevin's Girlfriend. That's another good setup, even if it's just an attractor and fly, or Kevin's Girlfriend meat rig. I will pull an Engel rig setup, that chartreuse and mirage one and such. And any other colors, like I said, it just depends on what they're after, because there's a plethora of them, no secret.
Yeah, the color
match colors, not always.
Color game is not slowed down. That's for sure. It's gotten faster. And it's interesting because, like you, I've been around this business my whole life. Like you, been in the tackle business and the charter fishing business. And the truth of the matter is you want to say color doesn't matter, because you'd like to not have it matter because it changes the variables. But I've never met, and I can honestly say this, I've never met what I would call a good salmon fisherman who isn't particular about what color he's putting in the water at a particular time. So obviously it makes a huge difference. So one of the things that I always really respected about your pa was, in my opinion, one of the things he revolutionized the most, and a lot of people might say, tournament fishing or this or that. One of the things I think he actually revolutionized the most was, I think he was one of the early ones to actually be promoting particular products. And actually, something that's been around the salmon fishing world, the walleye fishing world for years, been around the bass fishing world for years. But really, in theory, as a kid, you didn't see 30-foot boats running around with stickers on the side of it. And you didn't see guys at events wearing logoed clothing talking about, in particularly, products that they really helped, design and work with and all that. Your dad was sort of on the cutting edge, the leading edge of that. And obviously you guys have been with, like you said, you've been promoting and talking about Dreamweaver for many years. You've been promoting and talking about Johnson Outdoors, which is Canning and Humminbird, for many years. And you've been talking about Shimano for many years. Now, there's been a lot of changes with Shimano as far as their salmon and trout rods and reels over the past couple of years. Maybe give us a couple minutes of, your thoughts on, the new reels versus the old reels, the new Toro rods versus the old Toro rods. Because some of it too is always just, we can't control all of it either, right? You guys have your input, but they don't always necessarily listen to us. So I'm sure you have opinions both ways on a lot of this kind of stuff, and it's fair critique to say it both ways. You got to tell what you love and you got to tell what you don't. So maybe take a couple minutes and just kind of run through, for the people at home that do like Shimano or are maybe unfamiliar with some of the changes that have happened or are happening as we speak.
So about, oh gosh, how many years ago has it been? Almost 20 years ago, the Shimano decided they wanted to get into the big water world, and that was actually when my dad was over on your side of the lake, and he caught, and so he had the text with them and such. They could hardly speak English. That language barrier was something and stuff. So we had a translator, but he helped, and they were all taking notes and stuff of what he's pulling. But he got into the steelhead and he caught them 70 of them in an hour. You know, obviously there was a lot of releasing going on and stuff like that. And then, albeit he didn't win the tournament later. So that's when Mr. Shimano said, "This is our guy." So he lost, you know, they took my dad and Bill into a locker room. They had to have this affidavit signed and all that jazz, just like we did with Canon when they came out with the Optimums, and showed them the Dakota reel, I'm sorry, and said, "This is it." And then they gave us a bunch of rods, and they asked us what we liked. So we showed them what some of the ones we used. They said, basically make this, but use the best guides you can get. And that's what we love about Shimano, is that a lot of rods and reels are built on a price point. Shimano is not. They, you know, and I mean, I still to this day remember my dad arguing with the marketing guy because their diver rods never had a swivel tip on them early on. You know, it was just, and my dad says, "Put the swivel tip on them." They're like, "That's a $70 add-on. They won't buy it. We'll price ourselves off the market." My dad says, "They'll buy it. I'm telling you." By the time I'm done with them, because, you know, trade shows were the thing back then. We didn't have this Zoom like we've got now and stuff. He says, "Trust me, by the time I'm done, they'll have them." And a lot of them lasted a long time. Like for some of these, like I have 2 Dakota 800s that didn't have line counters that I've had since I bought the boat, and they were on the boat when I started fishing with Uncle Bob full time about 3 years prior. Never had to have any work done on them and stuff, so it's an investment. Shimano now has come out with, and about 2 years ago when they lightened up the restrictions with COVID and stuff, they brought the fishing techs back out to us and such, and they're all taking notes, snapping pictures, so on and so forth, looking at everything that we have and such, like the rod bosses. Also, that's another thing. I personally run one on almost every single one of my rods for my customers. You know, some guys are like, "I'm too tough for that." Well, I don't fish. They don't fish every day, and it helps them a lot. But getting back on subject, they've changed up not just the color, but how the action works on the rods. And their new Dakota 800s are phenomenal. They've done away with the 700s, and they've gone strictly to 800s. They have 800s and 600s, and they came out with the 600s back in I want to say 2019, and they're a lot faster. They have some good torque also. And these 800s, they are not any faster than the old ones. They're a little narrower, but the spool is deeper, so the capacity is bigger. And the speed is no different, but the wenching power that they've got, that's the thing that they found, is that more wenching power you've got, the better you do. So that's why we always run Time Rail 2s on our Downriggers, because we like the lever drag to adjust the strength, to adjust the tension. We don't thumb it down because we're running stuff way down. We found that if you tighten your release up and adjust and tighten your drag, you're going to have a much, much tighter setup, less of a bow, and it'll be easier to release it when you go to release it. So that's the thing that we're really excited about with the new Dakota series. My dad and I have just re-outfitted almost all of our coppers with it. My brother didn't get any of them, but he did get a lot of the stuff that we used, and I think we pretty much sold the rest of our rods and reels now. The old ones, I mean.
So I believe they've come out with the new big reel is an 800, but I believe
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
The 700 frame with the 800 spool. Is that right?
No. It basically is the same width. It's a 700 width, but the reel is a lot deeper. It's a bigger reel. It's not a wider reel. It's just a deeper reel. So
it's the same width as the 700 was, but it's the deeper. So which is nice because in theory, I've always said the 800 was just huge. The 55 Okumas are just huge, but you got to have the spool capacity, right? So I think it was super smart of them to go with a little bit smaller reel, but yet still get that large spool capacity. Now, is that reel a high speed, or is that what we kind of call a standard speed?
If you call the old 800s and 700s a high speed, then yes, I would call it a high speed as well. It's got a lot more winching power as well. So a lot of the ocean reels that they deal with and use, they got gears built right into the lever. You push one for high speed, that brings it to 5-to-1, and then you push it in and it brings it in for 1-to-1. We use 1-to-1 on the lake trout and 5-to-1 on the kings, because that way you can keep up with them. And 1-to-1 on the lake trout, because it just pulls them up. It just wenches them right up.
Now, I'm assuming you guys must have had the new 600s on the boat then for a couple of years now or so?
Yeah, we've had the 600s. I did a YouTube video with them when we were fishing in spring in down in Michigan City with them and such. We used them on all our flat lines and our mono divers, and the thing that I like is that the old 600s, the crank, you had the lever and the knob was right in the middle, so you had a little reel. Well, on all of these, it's got the handles this long, but it's all the way at the end. So you have bigger wenching power. It's a lot nicer. Like the old 7 and 800s, Dad and I lengthened them out to the wider setting a long time ago, just because we felt that because we got to reel them in ourselves sometimes, and we found that was more comfortable. So that's one thing that Shimano listened to us about. And these new reels are pretty expensive. I know they're over $300. I can't. I'm a bad guy to ask how much things really cost. Unfortunately, probably. Okay. Did I help answer your question and stuff?
That's good. Now, is there a copper rod in the new Toro series?
Yes, they have a new copper rod. They got a new wire rod too. It's hard to get a new wire rod though, but they have a new copper rod. They came out with a new rigger rod. I want to say they came out with it last year. They've changed all their rod colors to brown, and I haven't fished with it yet. But looking at the specs, it looks like it. See, a fishing. It gives you have a little bit more give when you're fighting the fish, but when you're going to reel and stuff, it's still got the firm action that you would want. That's the thing. It's very, 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 very techy, and I get lost a little easy trying to describe it. But the thing that's a fishing rep told me this the best. Said that a baseball bat is only designed to hit a baseball. A hockey stick is only designed to hit a puck. It gets used to hit other people sometimes, but it's designed to hit a puck. A fishing rod is supposed to help keep the bait, fish the bait, and then hook the fish, set the hook to fight the fish, and then it's supposed to fight the fish, and then it's supposed to land the fish. So, they've just changed things up a little bit. they've improved their action for all these elements that we demand of them. So we're very excited to run them all and such.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing from you this year on what you think of some of that new stuff. As we talk, maybe I'll get over and even do some filming with you when the fishing's going, and we can maybe bring some to the YouTube channel. Why don't you tell everybody at home where they can find your charter business, and if they're interested in booking a trip with you, how would they get a hold of you?
You can find us online. Find us on our website at www.bestchancedo.com. TOO. So our social medias are on Instagram. It's Best Chance Charters, and Facebook it's Best Chance Charter Fishing, and YouTube it is Best Chance Outdoors. Or you can Google my name on that one, Hunter Engel's Best Chance Outdoors.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us today on another episode of the Morning Buzz with Russell's Fishing Tech. We had Hunter Engel from Best Chance Charters. It was a good time. We talked for about an hour here about all kinds of things from early spring fishing, your dad's tournament history, some of your favorite tactics and tackle. Looking forward to it. And like I said, I'm really hoping to get over and film with some of the guys. That would give us an opportunity to get a little more in depth on that particular time of year and some of the gear and stuff like that. So thank you for watching another episode of the Morning Buzz. We'll see you next time.